Hello out there, and welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Frazier. Big old pile of stuff for you today, folks. Some really good information came out, some articles and stuff to talk about. I kick it off with a local story from Columbus, Ohio, ABC News. 60 people, including Ohio medical professionals, charged a massive opioid takedown. This is from Cincinnati, Ohio. 60 people, including doctors, pharmacists, nurses, and others across several states, were charged for illegally prescribing and distributing opioids in what federal investigators say is the biggest drug takedown of its kind in U.S. history. Authorities say those involved gave out more than 350,000 prescriptions, resulting in more than 32 million pills flooding the Appalachian region. The charges came as part of an investigation by the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force, or ARPO, which started their investigation in December. It involved law enforcement and federal investigators in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Alabama. Authorities have not yet released names, but say in Ohio, 6 people, including 2 doctors and 3 registered pharmacists, were charged with multiple counts. One doctor in Dayton was reportedly the highest prescriber of controlled substances in the state at one point. Federal investigators say in just a 2-year period, the doctor and several pharmacists gave out more than 1.75 million pills. The doctor and pharmacist are charged with operating an alleged pill mill in Dayton. In a case in Kentucky, a doctor at a pain clinic is accused of providing pre-signed blank prescriptions to office staff who then used them to prescribe the drugs when he was out of the office. In another case, investigators say a doctor was prescribing opioids to Facebook friends who would pick up the prescriptions at his home. The massive drug investigation focused on medical professionals involved in contributing to the opioid epidemic by unlawfully distributing the prescription drugs and other narcotics. Quote, opioid misuse and abuse is an insidious epidemic created in large part by the overprescribing of potent opioids nationwide, and unfortunately, Appalachia is at the center, said DE Assistant Administrator Martin. Yeah, they don't call it hillbilly heroin for nothing, right? Some of the medical professionals involved were also charged with Medicare fraud for billing the programs for reimbursement for testing and services that weren't necessary or weren't actually done. Authorities say they expect more people will be charged as part of the ongoing investigation. They are also asking for people who think a family member or loved one may have been a potential victim to contact them. If we can save one life in connection with this law enforcement operation, that alone will have made it worth the effort, Assistant Attorney General Brian A. Binkowski said. Yeah. Washington Attorney General William P. Barr and Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Alex M. Azar II, together with multiple law enforcement partners today, announced enforcement actions involving 60 charged defendants across 11 federal districts, including 31 doctors, 7 pharmacists, 8 nurse practitioners, and 7 other licensed medical professionals for their alleged participation in the illegal prescribing and distributing of opioids and other dangerous narcotics and for health care fraud schemes. You know what frosts my ass about all of this? I mean, we can keep going on and on here. The article just continues to go on. But we have this thing called the Food and Drug Administration that's supposed to be watching stuff and making sure that, unhealthy things aren't happening. And I'm trying to figure out that when 350,000 prescriptions, how did that not get flagged? How did the FDA not come up and say, oh, wait a minute, there's a problem here? And I read another article that up in Michigan, they had more prescriptions for opioids than they had citizens. Now, you would think that would set off a fucking flag, don't you? Wait a minute, time out, something's wrong here, something's not working right, something's amiss when we have more prescriptions for opioids than we have citizens, including, children. So I guess I'm a little sticky about this one, but I'm glad to see that they're doing something about it, but it's kind of like closing the barn door after the horse gets out, right? it needs to happen, right? There definitely needs to be some legal ramifications for this. But what kills me is that the institutions that are put in place to prevent this kind of stuff from happening, to protect citizens, just seem to be like completely absent throughout this whole mess with the opioid epidemic, especially out here in the Midwest, where it's bad. It's really bad. From the Independent, mathematicians discover a new way of multiplying large numbers. Yay, much to the consternation of many elementary school children. Mathematicians have reportedly discovered a new way of multiplying two numbers together. The new technique is for really large numbers, and if it passes a peer review, could be the fastest possible way of multiplying whole numbers. According to the mathematicians from Australia and France, long multiplication used to be the only way to multiply, but proved tedious and time-consuming when the numbers became too large. Yeah, I mean, even for computers, the long multiplication algorithm, defined as n to the power of, could reportedly take months if each number had 1 billion digits. That's a lot. But a new paper published on the document archive HAL, David Harvey from the University of New South Wales and Joris van der Hoeven of the French National Research Agency CNRS and École Polytechnique in Palaiseau revealed that a new technique suggested years ago actually works. The technique that the technique called the Schoenhagen-Strassen algorithm, which predicted that there should exist an algorithm that multiplies n-digit numbers using essentially n times log n, basic operation. This is all math shit. According to Harvey, was suggested but never proved by German mathematicians. The new paper proves that the technique is successful in cutting down the time it takes to multiply numbers, with billion-digit numbers theoretically multiplied in under 30 seconds using the algorithm. Quote, our paper gives the first known example of an algorithm that can achieve this, Harvey said. People have been hunting for such an algorithm for almost 50 years. It was not a foregone conclusion that someone would eventually be successful. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, who gives a shit? It's multiplying numbers, that are billion long and things like that. But the problem is that as our technology, for instance, let's throw this out there, like video games, polygon counts, things like that are just growing, getting more complicated, more realistic. That kind of stuff has a shit ton of math that's going on behind the scenes. So the ability to do stuff like this can have a direct impact on things like video games. But that's not the only thing, obviously. It's going to be, things they do with the cosmos and outer space, and there's going to be a lot to that. But the ability to crunch math faster is a big deal, and so that's why that popped out at me. I program machines for a living, so I kind of get how this stuff sort of works, and I can see, faster mathematics means faster processors. Faster processors means, you get more shit done. This is from the Washington Times. This is for all of you snowflakes out there. Quote, trigger warnings found to be virtually worthless and possibly harmful. Aww. They are the favored form of virtue signaling among college professors, feminists, and others who say certain images or statements should be accompanied by a cautionary statement for students or activists. The practice may be worthless, however. Quote, trigger warnings that alert people to potentially sensitive content are increasingly popular, especially on college campuses, but researchers suggest that they have minimal impact on how people actually respond to content, reported research published in Clinical Psychological Science, a journal of the Association for Psychological Science. Quote, we, like many others, we're hearing news stories week upon week about trigger warnings being asked for or introduced at universities around the world. Our findings suggest that these warnings, though well-intentioned, are not helpful, wrote lead author, a psychology scholar with Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. I'm going to give this a shot. It's Mivag Sanson. I could be totally murdering that, but she said the impact of trigger warnings was trivial and possibly harmful. Quote, it's possible that they function the way they were meant to, helping people to manage their emotional responses and reduce their symptoms of distress. But it's also possible trigger warnings could have the opposite effect, influencing people's expectations and experiences in ways that exacerbate their distress, noted Ms. Sanson, who based her research on reactions of 1,394 people who were exposed to a series of test warnings. We need to consider the idea that their repeated use encourages people to avoid negative material, and we already know that avoidance helps to maintain disorders such as PTSD. Trigger warnings might also communicate to people that they're fragile and coax them to interpret ordinary emotional responses as extraordinary signals of danger, Ms. Sanson noted. Yeah, there's a big, it's kind of like that whole, I don't know if, when you have kids, you don't tell them they're getting a shot before you take them to the doctor. I don't know, it's mean, bad daddy, all that kind of stuff. Love you guys, but you don't tell them because then they build it up in their mind way bigger than it actually is before they even get there. So I kind of get that. It's, it may not be actually helpful, and it may be actually creating anxiety that even isn't proportionate to, the information. So if you've been watching the news, Samsung's coming out with a new phone that folds in half. The screen folds in half. It's kind of a big deal. A lot of people were talking about it. Samsung, it's kind of a market differentiator for them. This article comes from Hyperblast. The Samsung Galaxy Fold is already breaking. Reviewers have been reporting problems after 1 or 2 days. I don't know how that happens. With the Galaxy Fold poised to finally release later this month, Samsung has begun rolling out the innovative model to select reviewers. So far, however, a number of these users and reviewers have reported issues and breaks with the phone after only a day or two of use. Prominent reviewers to have reported issues include Steve Kovach of CNBC, who posted a video of a broken and flickering screen that he explained was after 1 day of use, while Bloomberg's Mark Gurman posted images of his phone that was completely broken and unusable just 2 days in. Similarly, Dieter Bohn wrote that for The Verge that, quote, there's something pressing up against the screen at the hinge right there in the case, right there in the crease, and that the bulge eventually pressed sharply enough into the screen to break it. And then they have some pictures and stuff on Twitter. So since these issues were reported, Samsung has released a statement saying that the company, quote, will thoroughly inspect these units in person to determine the cause of the matter. The statement goes on to indicate that the problems may come after some users reported having removed the top layer of the display, causing damage to the screen. The main display of the Galaxy Fold features a top protective layer, which is part of the display structure designed to protect the screen from unintended scratches. So it's got like a kind of a built-in, screen protector. Removing the protective layer or adding adhesives to the main display may cause damage. We will ensure this information is clearly delivered to our customers. Despite these issues, Samsung has confirmed that the $1,980 US dollar Galaxy Fold is still due to release on April 26th. Well, we'll see, guys. I mean, it's way past time to go back into manufacturing and fix stuff if we're talking about April 26th as the official rollout day. But if you're looking for a Samsung Fold, Galaxy Fold, just heads up, you might have some problems with it. You might not. Other people have been, but we don't know whether they were doing something to the screens or, like they said, peeling off this protective layer that's not supposed to be removed and things of that nature. But good luck. My iPhone still works fan-fucking-tastic. This is from ARS Technica. Amazon and Google settle feud, bring YouTube back to Fire TV devices. That was kind of a bitch. And I don't know if anybody remembers back in the old days when, what was it? iPhones you couldn't have, wouldn't work with flash media. And if anybody remembers that. So the iPhone web browser was great, but you couldn't watch anything with flash media. And at the time, a lot of the multimedia was being presented that way and published that way. And so for a while now, Amazon's Fire, which I have a couple of, you couldn't use like the YouTube app. You couldn't, because they were having a pissing match. And apparently they've got that solved. Feuding tech giants Amazon and Google have come to an agreement on their streaming services. After over a year of absence, the official YouTube app will return to Amazon Fire TV devices and Fire TV Edition smart TVs. Google pulled the video streaming app in early 2018 after it could not strike a deal with the online retail giant surrounding the availability of its products and services. According to reports at the time, Google was unhappy with Amazon because the retailer didn't sell a number of its products, including Chromecast and Google Home devices. The two companies couldn't strike a business deal that pleased both parties, so Google removed the official YouTube app from the Fire TV devices at the start of 2018. This came after Google also revoked YouTube access on Amazon's Echo Show devices, citing a, quote, broken user experience. Well, it is now, you fuck. In the time since YouTube left Fire TVs, users have been able to access the site using browsers, but that experience isn't the most user-friendly, so the real losers in this situation were YouTube lovers that own Fire TV devices. Yeah, pretty much. Now those users who will soon have an official YouTube app sanctioned by Google on their streaming devices again. The new app will allow users to sign into their personal accounts and play 4K content up to 60 frames per second on unsupported devices. Coming later in this year will be dedicated apps for YouTube Kids and YouTube TV, the company's live TV streaming subscription service. Users will also be able to use Alexa to search for content in the YouTube app. In addition, Amazon will make Prime Video compatible on Chromecast and Chromecast built-in devices. With Chromecast support, those with the Prime Video mobile app can cast content to their TVs and watch it on a larger screen. The Prime Video app will also broadly support Android TV systems later this year. Well, see, that's better than what iPhone or what Apple's doing, because you can't cast anymore. The deal doesn't address one of the sources of the original Amazon-Google feud, Echo Show devices. It appears that those who have Amazon's screened version of the Alexa speaker will still have to use the company's experimental browser or Firefox to access YouTube on that device. The details of the agreement are unknown, but Google may have been more willing to chat with Amazon after the company started selling Chromecasts again on its website at the end of 2018. Notably, Amazon still doesn't sell Google Home devices, and searches for those products bring up Amazon's own Echo, Echo Dot, and other devices, as well as Facebook's portal. Ah, look at all that collusion. It's good shit, right? This is from The Verge. U.S. facial recognition will cover 95% of departing airline passengers within 4 years. Now, I fly a lot. I mean, a lot. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I'm always putting pictures and shit up of the places I am. But, so I think it's only pretty much a matter of time, but this is going to be the thing. You don't have to have your face scanned biometrically. You just don't have to get on the airplane. It's kind of the way they're presenting this. So it's no option at all. If, you know, for people like me that have to fly and work, we don't get the option of not having our faces scanned biometrically and stuff like that. Not that it's, I mean, I don't give a shit. I'm a what do they call that, a speed pass or pre-check. I'm pre-check. So I've done the fingerprints and everything else I've already done with them. And for that now I can pretty much just blow through any airport without having to stand in the ridiculously long lines. But I had to give up some of my anonymity to pull that off. And I'm not sure that, I mean, when I go through the pre-check lines, it's, you know, it's not even the body scanner. It's a metal detector, and you don't have to pull your stuff out of your laptop bag. You don't have to take your shoes off. And I think that they feel that it's safer because they have all your personal information. They can see that you're a frequent flyer and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. This really begs an issue especially for people that are civil libertarians that don't want the government hoovering up shit tons of their data and collecting it and keeping it and stuff. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know how this pans out, but I do know this. I still have to fly for a living, so my name's going to be, or my face is going to be in that database. I don't have anything to fucking hide at all. That's why I went and did pre-check. It's no big deal. But it's, where does it end? The Department of Homeland Security says it expects to use facial recognition technology on 97% of departing passengers within the next 4 years. The system, which involves photographing passengers before they board their flight, first started rolling out in 2017 and was operational in 15 U.S. airports at the end of 2018. None that I've seen. The facial recognition system works by photographing passengers at the departure gate. It then cross-references this photograph against a library populated with face images. This is a weird word. F-A-C-E-S-I-M-A-G-E-S. Face images? I don't know. from visa and passport applications, as well as those taken by border agents when foreigners enter the country. The aim of the system is to offer biometric exit, which gives authorities as good an idea of who's leaving the country as who's entering it. Oh. And allows them to identify people who have overstayed their visas. Oh, look at that shit. Quartz notes that U.S. authorities have traditionally relied on airline flights manifests to track those leaving the country. That's right. Someone might be breaking the law, folks, so everybody loses their rights. That's how it works. Since the introduction of the current system, facial recognition identified 7,000 passengers who overstayed their visas on the 15,000 flights tracked. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection estimates that over 600,000 people overstay their visas every year, an offense that carries a maximum penalty of 10 years, a 10-year ban from entering the U.S. Critics argue that building up a database of millions of people's photographs is a threat to civil liberties. Once you have the database, it would be easy to share it with other agencies, effectively turning it into a search tool for law enforcement. Yeah, this is all like, that what's dark mirror kind of stuff. It's we'll just keep tracking you and keep keep these databases on you and know where you go every minute of every day. I don't know. Maybe someday we'll wake up. Critics argue that building up a database of millions of people's photographs is a threat to civil liberties. Once you have the data, I already said that. The current iteration of the system entered trials in 2017 on a single flight between Atlanta and Tokyo. It was originally planned to roll out more widely at the beginning of 2018, but its implementation was fast-tracked by the Trump administration and was expanded to more airports in the summer of 2017. Yeah, of course it was. This is from Undark, Truth, Beauty, and Science. It's 2019. Academic papers should be free. Libraries and funding agencies are finally flexing their muscles against journal paywalls. Authors should follow suit. A person could be forgiven for believing 20 years ago that the internet would soon revolutionize academic publishing. With the emergence of the World Wide Web, it suddenly became possible for academic publishers to disseminate scholarly work at the click of a button at a fraction of the cost of printing and mailing hard copy journals. Recognizing the opportunity, many scholars and librarians began to advocate a new open access model of academic publishing in which research articles are made freely available online to anyone who wants them, not just affiliates of colleges or universities. The result would be a true online public library of science, which, as it so happens, also became the name of one of the first publishers to embrace the model. As a new librarian in the early 2000s, I believed passionately in the cause of open access and worked hard to bring it about. But almost 2 decades later, the movement has made only slight gains at the margins, and the traditional subscription-based model remains firmly entrenched in academia. For the university libraries who bear most of the subscription costs, it is as though the internet revolution never happened. Since 1986, research library expenditures have grown at more than 4 times the rate of inflation, with journal prices showing the greatest price jumps of all. Things are finally changing. Authors who have long steered clear of the open access debate no longer have that luxury. They should be prepared to chart their own destiny as scholars, else other groups will do that for them. A big shoe dropped in February when the University of California Libraries, one of the country's biggest library systems and my former employer, not mine, the authors, declined to renew its contract with Elsevier. I don't know what that is. Elsevier. Here's what it is. The world's largest scientific publisher. Elsevier publishes approximately 2,500 journals, and for the past 2 years, its scientific, technical, and medical arm has netted profit margins of 37%. Yeah, but 37% of what? At the center of the failed negotiation between UC and Elsevier was a tension between subscription and open access publishing models. Like most publishers, Elsevier bundles its journals into packages, which it then licenses to libraries for a fee. This model, known as the big deal, has become ubiquitous in academic libraries. However, for some of its journals, Elsevier also offers open access publishing on an article-by-article basis. If an author wants to make her work freely and immediately available to the public, she or her university can pay an upfront fee known as a publishing charge. In these hybrid journals, some articles are open access while others are available only by subscription. And I read another article about this for people that want to get white papers and academic papers and stuff. The trick is this: if you don't want to buy it, they tell you who the author is, and generally they give you contact information. Email them and say, hey, I want your paper, and I'd like to read it. Most of them will just email it to you for free. So there is like a backdoor way sort of around that if you read academic papers, and I do, and technical papers and things. So that you don't have to pay the upfront costs to download them from the journal servers and stuff. This is from IFL Science. What jobs will be replaced by robots in the near future? In the coming 30 years, advanced robots and automated machines could potentially replace tens of millions of jobs. I keep saying that. But what jobs are actually on the line, and which ones will continue to flourish while our future robot overlords slowly gather strength? The sleek infographic created by TitleMax shows 50 of the most common occupations in the U.S. and the chances of them being replaced by a humanless automated process in the not-so-distant future. The findings were produced by combing data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and information from the website Will Robots Take My Job? That's a website, which was based on a 2013 study about computerization and future employment. If you're a high school teacher, we have some good news for you. If you're a chef, then not so much. But don't fret too much. Throughout history, new technology has revolutionized the nature of employment, quite often leaving workers with fears that they might soon be obsolete. However, new technology has also created new opportunities and new jobs. The future is not ours to know, but many argue this upcoming shift of the world's workforce will be no different. Well, unless the robots really take over, that is. So retail sales is like the number one. Then it goes food preparation and service workers, cashiers, office clerks, registered nurses, however, 1% chance. The likelihood of automation. So retail sales, food preparation, cashiers, and office clerks might want to start sharpening up the old resume. But if you're a registered nurse, looks like you're pretty okay. Customer service reps, about 50-50. Laborers and freight, stock and material movers, 85%. Waiters and waitresses, 94%. Secretaries and administrative assistants, 96%. General and operations managers, 16%. Janitors and cleaners, not house cleaners, 66%. Stock clerk and order fillers, 64%. Personal care aides, 74%. Heavy, this is for my brother, you better be listening. Heavy and tractor trailer truck drivers, 79%. Bookkeeping, accounting, and auditing clerks, 98%. It's kind of interesting, right? Because I've already seen this. When I started out in industrial automation, I worked for an engineering firm out of Boston, and we had a person that did purchasing. We had a person that did accounts payable, accounts receivable. We had administrative people, and this was all just to support our engineering efforts. Billing and all this kind of stuff. The company I work for now, however, we have none of that. As a matter of fact, it's all been replaced by an app on our cell phones. So when we're on job sites, when we order stuff, when we're tracking hours for time and T&E, time and expense, and all of this kind of thing, we just do it all on our phones now. And that app has kind of replaced like 3 people that used to be back office people. So it allows us to carry better profit margins, which is good for us, and as employees, because we get paid well, and the company takes fantastic care of us. But we remove that overhead and that liability too. It's not just overhead, but we remove that liability too. But we've removed all that, and we just all sort of do it ourselves. So in a weird sort of way, now we do more work, although that's arguable because I still had to talk to these people, and oftentimes I could have just done it faster by myself. But because they were in the position, I had to use them, kind of thing. So I think it might actually kind of wash. But yeah, companies nowadays is back office stuff. If you're doing back office stuff, boy, get yourself out of there because it's not going to be around for very long. And the jobs that will be available once that happens will be very, very limited. This is from the Register. Who's using Mueller Report Day to bury bad news? The Mueller report came out today. If you guessed Facebook, you're right. Millions of passwords stored in plain text. Wham bam, thanks, thanks Instagram is what it says. While journalists and netizens are distracted digesting the redacted 400-plus page Mueller report released within the past few hours, today will be a good day for spin doctors to bury bad news, and Facebook just couldn't pass up the opportunity. 1 hour before the long-awaited dossier by Robert Mueller, special counsel of the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 United States presidential elections, began circulating in Washington, D.C. and beyond, Facebook quietly amended an online press release it issued in March. The press release, in which the antisocial network admitted to storing hundreds of millions of its user account passwords in plain text and log files on its servers that were accessible by internal staff, a rather clumsy move. At the time, Silicon Valley giant said, in addition to those millions upon millions of Facebook profile credentials, it also logged the passwords of tens of thousands of Instagram users in an unencrypted form on its system, which its engineers may have seen while rifling through logs to hunt down bugs. Now the tech Goliath has decided to revise the figure, and well, let's just say it's massively underestimated that number. Big surprise. What's up, Mark? Since this post was published, we discovered additional logs of Instagram passwords being stored in a readable format, the amendment reads today. Quote, we now estimate that this issue impacted millions of Instagram users. We will be notifying these users as we did the others. Our investigation has determined that these stored passwords were not internally abused or improperly accessed. Bullshit. What are they going to do? Come right out and say, oh, yeah, man, like someone pulled it off on a USB memory stick, and who God knows where that's gone now. It could be anywhere, dark web, regular web, it doesn't matter. We're sure that the Mark Zuckerberg run corporate disaster scene can be trusted with that last statement. After all, it's not like Zuck and company have ever lied or distorted or been economical with the truth in the past. Boy, isn't that the frickin' truth, right? Also on the Facebook front, this comes from Futurism. Facebook unintentionally uploaded 1.5 million email accounts. Jeez. Is your data safe with Facebook? After getting caught storing hundreds of millions of account passwords in plain text last month, a flabbergasted breach of good data security practices, Facebook has been busted in another security snafu, admitting yesterday that it unintentionally uploaded email contacts of some 1.5 million new users since May 2016. The extent of the damage caused by the glitch is still unclear, but Facebook says it's fixed the problem. Quote, these contacts were not shared with anyone, and we are deleting them. Again, bullshit. You don't know that they weren't shared with anyone. It's data. It can be copied, accessed. Business Insider first discovered the glitch, which caused Facebook to collect email contacts of newly signed up users without their consent. Security researcher Sushi first uncovered the glitch. He says, hey, at Facebook, demanding the secret password of the personal email accounts of your users for verification or any other kind of use is a horrible idea from an InfoSec point of view. By going down that road, you're practically fishing for passwords you're not supposed to know. It's a damning revelation, and Facebook fell short as usual of a particularly convincing mea culpa. Quote, last month we stopped offering email password verification as an option for people verifying their account when signing up for Facebook for the first time. A statement from Facebook read, as quoted by Business Insider. Well, isn't that great? So more with the Antichrist, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, and Face Crook, one of my favorite subjects to illuminate. This is also from Futurism. Elon Musk's Loop project is one step closer to breaking ground, my main man. Nearly 2 years after Elon Musk first claimed his Boring Company had permission to build an East Coast Hyperloop, the project is finally starting to come to fruition. Sort of, anyway. On Wednesday, the U.S. Department of Transportation shared a draft environmental assessment for the Washington, D.C. to Baltimore Loop project, a scaled-down version of Musk's initial vision. This marks the first step in a joint federal-state review of the project, and it brings a new kind of transportation system incrementally closer to reality. The Loop project differs from the Hyperloop system Musk initially envisioned. For one thing, it's technically not a Hyperloop at all. Instead of shuttling passengers around at speeds in excess of 965 kilometers per hour in a partial vacuum tube, the Loop project will see them ride in autonomous electric vehicles at speeds up to 241 kilometers per hour. That's still pretty freaking quick. The route is also considerably shorter, connecting just D.C. and Baltimore and not New York City and Philadelphia. Still, the Boring Company hasn't given up on the idea of an East Coast Hyperloop altogether. It has already announced plans to design the Loop project tunnels to be compatible with Hyperloop technology so they could possibly be upgraded and extended to other cities in the near future. If you haven't seen this this guy, geez, he's such a freaking baller. But the Hyperloop is really, really interesting concept. I don't know in practicality how well it will work, but I really, really think it's a cool-ass concept. We'll see. If anyone's going to pull it off, it's going to be Elon Musk. And finally, from ZME Science, 2 newly discovered Egyptian tombs look almost as fresh as the day they were painted. Two newly discovered tombs give a dazzling, exceptionally preserved glimpse into the deaths of ancient Egyptians. I love Egypt stuff, man. It's like guilty pleasure. 2 new tombs have been discovered in Egypt in an almost pristine state. One of the tombs is part of the Akhmim necropolis in the province of Sohag, and dates back to the Ptolemy era of Egypt. I guess I don't like Egypt as much as I say I do. About 2,000 years ago. The other tomb from Saqqara is significantly older, dating back to over 4,000 years ago. Quote, "It's one of the most exciting discoveries ever in this area," said Mustafa Waziri of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. Both tombs are in incredibly well-preserved state. The murals on the walls are virtually intact. The discoverers report with the collars unfaded by time. The Sohag tomb was discovered after a gang of tomb robbers who were carrying out an illegal excavation were arrested nearby, according to the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities. It dates back to there's that word again, Ptolemaic era. I bet the P is silent on that. And belonged to a senior official named Tutu and his wife. The tomb comprises 2 rooms, both adorned with lavishly painted walls. Inside Tutu's tombs, archaeologists found 2 limestone sarcophagi and an exceptionally well-preserved mummy. More than 50 mummified animals were also found in this tomb, including ibis, falcons, eagles, dogs, cats, and shrews. How'd they get a shrew in there? The other tomb from Saqqara dates back to the time of Pharaoh Djeghar Isisi. I could be murdering that too. Probably am. It seems to have belonged to a high-ranking official named Khuwi, Khuwy, Khuwi. The tomb itself also suggests that this Khuwi was related in one form or another to Djeghar Isisi. It is an L-shaped building with a small corridor, an antechamber, and a large main chamber adorned with murals showing Khuwi seated at a table of offerings. In addition, the tomb also boasts a tunneled entrance, which are usually the domain of royal tombs and pyramids, and collars traditionally reserved for royalty in its murals. Archaeologists also found Khuwi's mummy and the canopic jars in which organs are placed for burial, which were sadly broken into pieces at the tomb. It busted it open. At a presentation unveiling the tomb of Tutu, Waziri said he hoped the discovery would draw the world's attention to the civilization and antiquities of Egypt. This feeds into the sustained efforts Egypt has been making to publicize its archaeological findings in recent months in an effort to increase tourism interest in a destination that suffered following a 2011 uprising, CNN adds. At the end of last year, the ministry unveiled 2 dazzling tombs, one dating back 3,500 years and another 4,400 years old, belonging to a priest named Wati. Another 2,500-year-old tomb was also found to contain dozens of mummified cats and scarab beetles. That's pretty cool shit. I like this stuff, especially with this laser interferometry and some of the different things that they're doing where they're using aircraft to fly over regions and they can like sort of look into the ground and see where this stuff is. And since they've started doing that, well, South America is just, it's gone nuts with what they're finding down there. Completely unadulterated type sites where they're going into and finding a lot of really cool information. And the same thing's happening also in Egypt and in the Middle East, where they're able to look like almost down through the sand. Not quite. I'm exaggerating a little, probably a lot. But they can kind of look down into the sand and see, oh, hey, there's structures underneath that have just been covered over by the years of the wind and sand moving around as it does. So there's going to be a lot more of this kind of stuff coming out. And well, we just saw that. What's his name? Gates. What's his? He does a show on, I think it's the Travel Channel. And he's like an archaeologist. But they just did like a live tomb opening on TV, which was really cool. I watched that a couple weeks back. If you look back through my Instagram feed, you'll find some links to it. But they're just gonna run the hell out of that now that it's done. But it was really fascinating to see them real time kind of go into this tomb and explore it and find things. Like they opened a sarcophagus and there was a mummy in it. And it was, I don't know, like I said, I just find this shit fascinating. As far as the tourism and stuff in Egypt, I've got some friends that have recently just been over there and are back now. But they've done I guess Egypt has done a really, really good job of making it welcoming for tourism again, especially in and around, these sites of antiquity like the Great Pyramids and places, so that people will feel safer and be more willing to come and see this stuff, because otherwise they lose a major, major revenue stream, and it's not good. So that's the wrap up for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Check us out, www.noshitcast.com. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. If you got something you want me to talk about, or if you see something cool, news article or anything out there you think it would be great for the show, by all means, shoot that shit over to me. I'll give it a look-see. I'm not guaranteeing I'll put it up because it might be crap, but if it's not, I'll certainly give it a shot. And comments and questions and things like that, well received, and keep that stuff up, and we'll catch you all next time. Thanks for listening. Bye, Stickles.